Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! As some know, I previously posted about my parents refusing to give back my Nintendo Switch when one of my siblings stole it. And many commenters had a lot to say about the stuff my parents were doing, and to just call the police or CPS if my parents ever dumped my youngest siblings off at my door without asking again. Well, I waited and waited, but there was no contact between us for around 3 months since the last time my mom called and I refused to watch my siblings without being paid. Then it finally hit. My parents called me all of a sudden wanting me to babysit, and they acted like the prior incident with the Switch never happened. I told them I was not going to babysit unless they paid me, and it would have to be a day that I had off work. My schedule had also shifted, so I no longer had Saturdays off. I actually asked my boss for that since Saturdays were the days they asked me to babysit the most. Plus, picking up an extra shift was better for me financially. My dad got furious as usual and said that I needed to man up and help out. So I pointed out that he needs to stop acting like he has control over me, and technically I'm man enough for myself in my own life. Like he always claimed he did at my age, yet he always worked Saturdays and put a ton of his responsibilities on me, so he could get lost as far as I was concerned. He started yelling violently into the phone and my mom took it away from him. I said I could only babysit Sundays because that is my only day off, and I would only do it if they paid me $30 and included pre-packed lunches, dinners, and snacks for my siblings, because I wasn't going to waste my money providing food for them. That is not my job. And if they took anything from me, like when my Switch was stolen last time, I would get the police involved to get it back. I saved the receipt when I bought it and documented the serial numbers, so I'd have no problem proving to the police it is mine. My mom's witch mode kicked in and she started swearing like a sailor that just broke a tooth at me. I let her have her rant while pretty much ignoring the phone until she realized I wasn't responding and started demanding I say something. So I said that she and dad have my conditions. Sundays only, $30 and pre-packed food or they could get lost. There was a moment of silence on the line. And then my mom went off on me again and said that my younger siblings that are 14 and 15 had to step up to help because I wasn't helping anymore, and they needed a break. I laughed and said, "Oh, like how you guys gave me breaks? Like never?" My mom tried to say that was different, and it was because I was the oldest child. I said that it wasn't different. They parentified me and I lost out on a bunch of my childhood because of it, and now I'm living my own life without them, and they are hypocrites to act like I should step up again when I'm no longer living there, and they have 2 teenagers in the house that could do everything I used to do. My mom shifted into victim mode and started saying that my teenage siblings were repelling and not listening to them. I said their whining and moaning wasn't my problem. They need to figure out alternative childcare. I'm too busy with having a life. My dad got back on the phone and started yelling at me some more. I just laughed at him and said he was just blowing hot air, and that he was talking but not really saying anything. My mom took the phone back and pleaded with me one more time. I reiterated Sundays only with pre-packed food and $30. And I won't hesitate at all to call the police if any threats are made or any of my stuff gets stolen. I heard my parents start loudly yelling back and forth at each other over what to do, so I said they can just work it out and get back to me later. Then I hung up. It was right back to radio silent for about a while. Then one Saturday morning, a few weeks later, I was getting ready for work when there was a sudden loud and fast knock at my door. The kind where, you know, they are doing it with both hands. My mom's done that for years as her knock-in trademark to let me know that she was there. And she knows it, I know the sound of it very well. And the knocking was followed by what sounded like someone loudly running down the corridor. I listened through the door and could hear my two youngest siblings bickering with each other and tapping on the doors themselves. My mother just left them outside the door and ran. But because of all the warnings I got in my last post, I had a simple plan for this. I just opened my window, climbed out, and simply walked away. My apartment is on the ground level all the way to the end of the building, and I can climb out the window I have there easily by just pulling the screen out. I called one of my neighbors that lives a few doors down, and she's a sweet old lady that likes kids, and I gave her the rundown. She's known about my situation with my narcissist parents for a while now, and she called the police for me to tell them that there were two kids left abandoned in the hall after the mother pounded on a door and took off. Suffice to say, the police came and picked up my siblings. My parents called me later and were furious. I pretended to be clueless and asked what they were so mad about. My mom fully admitted she left my two youngest siblings at my door for me to babysit and ran. I asked if she just left them there without anyone answering the door, because I was already out since I had to work Saturdays. My mom just got really quiet for a few seconds. How the hell was I supposed to know that? I countered that this was all her fault, and she literally abandoned her kids at my door in the hopes that maybe I was home, on a day that I'd already told her several times that I worked. Like she was trying to force me to skip a shift by trying to give me no choice but to watch them. She started making excuses, but I told her what she did was inexcusable and immature. She ended up crying and I just let that go on for a while before asking if she was done yet. She went back into witch mode and yelled at me that the police were charging her with child abandonment. I said that was really my fault since she left the kids in the hall. Then I said I would have called the police on her as well if I was home, and she refused to come back for the kids. Because I told him before that I work Saturdays too, so I refused to be trapped into babysitting anymore. The rest of the call was some more pointless pickering on her end, and didn't really go anywhere. My mom somehow ended up getting off with just a slap on the wrist and a fine because she somehow convinced the cops that she honestly thought I was home and would babysit. Or so my next sibling said when he texted me. I don't know how much the fine was, but the fact she had to pay one should make her think twice about just leaving the kids at my door and running off again. My dad wasn't charged as well because he was at work, and he also claimed to be unaware of her intent to leave my siblings at my door. I was told he was actually pissed at my mom for doing that. The pot and kettle situation had me laughing so hard, but I guess I have to give credit to my old man if he'd had never done what my mom did. Either way, that left my mom with a police record. That's a first strike in the eyes of the law, I think. After that, things really boiled over on Thanksgiving. My parents invited me over, and I was fully expecting it to be some kind of trap. And it was. At dinner, my dad just sat at the table smoking a cigarette and acting like he was in charge. He had my mom sit me down and then said enough was enough, and he was ending this farce. He told me that I needed to move back home and pay rent to help with her mortgage and bills, as well as help parent my siblings because they don't have any time to themselves anymore. And the fine my mom had to pay hit their finances hard. I just said no, plain and simple. And I kept that up no matter how much he tried to order me. He ended up getting so angry that he actually attacked me, and he's not a small man. I thankfully am not either, as I've been hitting the gym for months now and learned some amateur fighting. I had my steel-toed boots on as well, so I gave him a swift kick where it hurts when he came at me, then punched him hard enough in the face that he was down on the floor in an instant. He landed with quite a thud and even threw up because of the pain while clutching his goodie bag. Then I told my parents that I had my phone recording in my pocket the whole time, and I could easily prove he attacked me first. My dad told me to get out of his house and never come back, and I obliged, but not before taking a turkey leg off the platter and riding home with it to eat. Since then, only my siblings have called or texted me. They said that I had walked out like a boss, And there are now running jokes in the house about dad's poor goods. I spent Christmas with a friend's family, and I've got a standing invite to come back for other holidays. I was doing my weekly grocery shopping at one of the supermarkets in my area, Cape Cod, Massachusetts. I was wearing a collarless Celtic grandfather shirt and a kilt. A Karen came up to me, assuming for some weird reason that I'm an employee. How many stores on Cape Cod have kilts as part of the dress code for male employees? And hits me with the infamous, "Excuse me?" I said yes, and she shoved a piece of paper, her grocery list, in my hand. I handed it back to her and said, "Sorry, I don't work here." She then shoved her grocery list in the front pocket of my shirt, saying, "Don't lie to me, do your job." Rather than argue, I took the grocery list out of my shirt pocket, ripped it in half, and then in half again. I then threw the pieces into the air, and she started screaming for a manager. It just so happened the manager on duty wasn't far away and recognized me because, frankly, there are not too many men on Cape Cod who wear a kilt almost every day in spring, summer, and fall, and I'm a regular customer. She demanded I be fired, and he explained that I was a customer and did not work there. He then picked up the pieces of paper from her torn-up grocery list, handed them back to the Karen, and told her that she could find tape to tape her list back together again for sale in the next aisle where the school supplies are. She stood there, her mouth opening and closing like a freaking fish out of the water, and he and I walked up to the cashier so I could pay for my groceries. I don't know what happened after that as I headed back to my car, loaded my groceries inside, and I drove home. This happened probably 30 years ago, before GPS was in every car. This might not fit this subreddit, but seems to be in keeping with many of the other stories. I grew up near a flea market that was extremely popular. It was located in a rural area about 45 minutes outside a major metropolitan area, and in the summer the lines to get into the parking lot would be packed up a half-mile or more. The market was open on Tuesdays and Saturdays. Selling frozen fruit bars from a cart there during the summer was my first job. I rode my bike there and knew it was exactly 1 mile from our driveway to their driveway. On the same road, there was one intersection with a stop sign in the middle. One Tuesday after school had started, my sister and I were outside waiting for the bus, and this woman rolls to a stop in front of us and asks if we knew how to get to the flea market. I told her it was a mile that way, pointing in the correct direction. She says they have already been that way. So I repeated, "It is a mile that way. There is one stop sign that you need to go through, but it's on the same road we are on." She starts screaming that they have already been that way and asking why I'm lying to her. So I apologized and said I was sorry for trying to mess with her. Sidebar: I was really good with maps and geography. I spent a lot of my early teenage years riding my bike all over the area I grew up. So I then proceeded to give her a made-up set of turns going the opposite direction that would put her at least 25 minutes away from us, knowing our bus would pick us up in a minute or two. They were complicated enough that she had to get out a pen and paper and write them down, and she'd have a hard time backtracking us even if she wanted to. And I was confident enough that she believed I wasn't making things up. My mom came out after the woman left and asked what was up. I said, "Just another lost tourist looking for the flea market." Sister-in-law is the kind of woman that always has to one-up other kids. She constantly talks about how her kids are smarter, taller, faster, and so on than her friends' kids. She literally bragged about them being more than her friends' kids when they were babies. It was worse when my husband and I had our twins. Suddenly, everything was a competition that her kids always won. One of my girls rolled over at 4 months. Her son had rolled over when he was just a week old. The twins both took their first steps around 13 months. Her daughter was running at 4 months. She didn't actually start walking until around 16 months. She even changed the weight of her kids' birth weights, which makes them both heavier than the current heaviest newborn in America. It is so weird that she feels the need to tell such obvious lies, especially to people who know she's lying because they were there when her kids were small. I got annoyed when she went from lying about her own kids to telling me there is something wrong with mine. The girls are a few months shy of 2, and they are both healthy, on track, and hitting their milestones. Sister-in-law has become obsessed with the idea that there is something wrong with them because they are not speaking in long sentences. Of course they are not. They are not even 2. They are both developmentally on track, but she insists that her children were speaking in 5 to 6 word phrases by 18 months. Spoiler, they were not. Honestly, her son is almost 7 and I can still barely understand a word the kid says. My husband and I ignored her, but she took it too far when I got a call from her friend who works in early intervention who was under the impression that I was concerned about my children. We talked and her friend confirmed that yes, they are on track and no, there is nothing to worry about. I finally lost my patience. Hey, her kids are breaking almost every record there is and that should be celebrated. We had dinner with my husband's family on Saturday. Kids were in another room, and I decided it was the perfect time to give her my gift, a booklet I had printed and laminated called The White Claw Book of World Records. I printed all the supposed milestones of her kids, complete with photos and the information of the actual world record holders now that they had been pushed to second place. She flipped through the first couple of pages, went beet red and called me a jerk. Her husband took it from her and got through the first page before laughing hysterically and asking her why the hell she was still lying. Apparently, it was not the first time they had talked about her lying about their kids. She stormed out but texted me later that night and asked me why I had humiliated her when all she'd ever tried to do was help me get my kids the help they needed. But if that was how I wanted to treat her, then she'd stop. So I guess it is a win for me. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.